Proving that patience is a virtue, and Deputy Ladden, you can reach for question 72.
I wish to ask the Taoiseach, Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, if he will report on the initiatives that he has facilitated or plans to facilitate to encourage the engagement of the IDA with Irish Rail and the National Transport Authority to provide public transport services to IDA parks, such as Raheen Industrial Estate in my constituency of Limerick City, and if he will make a statement on the matter.
As the Deputy may be aware, IDA Ireland released annual results yesterday. Over 24,000 net new jobs were created, the highest year on record, and over half of new investments went to locations outside of Dublin. Employment was up in every part of the country, including the Midwest, where employment grew by 3.6%. Total employment in IDA client companies now stands at over 300,000 for the first time. IDA Ireland is placing an increased focus on sustainability, and its current strategy targets 60 sustainability investments. That is, investments by client companies that contribute towards decarbonisation and the green transition. We secured 21 of these in 2022. It's essential that there are serviceable sites with appropriate zoning, planning and the required infrastructure in all parts of Ireland to attract FDI. The IDA's regional property programme uses leadership in energy and environmental design LEED accreditation to reduce carbon emissions and increase energy efficiency in its building programme. Successful initiatives to date include simple yet impactful steps, such as the installation of more efficient public lighting and an enhanced focus on sustainable models of transport, such as public transport links to business parks. It has invested in and installed bus and cycle infrastructure where possible in flagship parks. I'm advised that the IDA Property Division is currently working with Limerick City and County Council in designing a new cycle lane along the banks of the River Shannon and River Mulcair to the north and east of the National Technology Park in Castletroy. In addition, I'm informed that IDA has made a written submission to the draft Limerick-Shannon Metropolitan Area Transport Study in relation to transport links in the city. The submission advocated for high-quality, connected and accessible transport infrastructure, be that through active travel facilities, public transport or road infrastructure.
I thank the Taoiseach for his answer, and Taoiseach, you will be pleased to know that the draft strategy is no longer a draft. It's actually across the line as of last week, and it's a very good strategy. And as you'll know, there's a very ambitious plan for development of bus and rail networks in the Limerick City, as well as active travel networks. And you'll know as well that this government is reopening the Limerick to Foynes railway line. One of the major industrial estates in the country, I would say, not only in the Midwest, is the Raheen Industrial Estate. And I've met with the IDA, I've met with the chief execs of some major companies that are existing there, and companies such as Eli Lilly, who have a very exciting plan to set up there. They've got planning permission now, and they're going to get going in the next few weeks on development of their plant. There's a fantastic opportunity to develop rail, particularly around this industrial estate. I think we can put a train station there. I've mentioned it to you before, and I would encourage you, Taoiseach, that as you take up your new role, that you keep this in mind, because I think it is something that we will be coming to in the years ahead.
Thanks, Deputy. I'm glad to hear that the draft strategy is now a strategy. And I know that Mr Ryan, as Minister for Transport, is very enthusiastic about Metropolitan Rail around Limerick and Cork in particular. I've been to Raheen Industrial Park, to Regeneron. Hope to see the Lilly plant underway very soon now the planning permission has been secured. I don't know the exact geography, but I understand that it would be possible to put a railway station in as part of the Limerick-Foynes line. And I think that would be a huge boost to have Limerick Metropolitan Rail, serving really from Ennis all the way in County Clare all the way to Adair and Foynes, and having stations along the way makes a lot of sense and would allow us to have much more sustainable and centralised development rather than the sprawl that we've seen in pretty much all the other cities.
I certainly agree, Taoiseach, and it is on the plan. It's actually on the train station in Raheen is on phase 2 of the plan. The question is when phase 2 happens, and I think we can make a case for phase 2 to happen sooner rather than later. I do think there's a role for the IDA here to be very proactive and to work with the NTA and the local authority to make this happen, and it really is genuinely a very exciting plan. for Limerick and for the whole Midwest region, and I think it will also help rebalance investment in this country towards the West and Midwest, which I think is critically important and this government supports. And in the time that I have available, I realise I'm the last person to ask you a question, an oral PQ. In your tenure as Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, can I just say that I think it's been a very successful a few years in the department, Taoiseach, and can I wish you the very best, and I think it'll be a very successful few years in your new role as Taoiseach of this country. Thank you.
Taoiseach, final word.
Thanks, Deputy. Appreciate the kind words. I've really enjoyed being Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment for the last 2.5 years, working with the IDA and Enterprise Ireland and the Leos to create jobs around the country, improving workers' rights, and working with the three Ministers of State who've served with me on some major legislative reforms around competition, around company law, around consumer law, the establishment of the Corporate Enforcement Authority, the reform of the PIAB, and lots of other things we've got done in a 2.5 years period that has really flown. I will be around tomorrow, and I will be taking leaders' questions on Thursday. So I have a number of dull appearances before Saturday. But just to answer your question, which I think is the most important thing, I do think the IDA has a role to play when it comes to promoting better rail access and better public transport to industrial parks. IDA does get very involved in air connectivity, which we all know is very important, but maybe needs to get a little bit more involved in thinking about how people get in and out of the industrial sites, and that isn't always by car. And I think there's definitely an opportunity there, and I'll make sure it's on my agenda for future discussions with the agency.